So now you get to see my other hat. Oh, one of them. I think I've got like 5. I don't know if I think I'm not alone in that. And a lot of us wear a lot of different hats. But this project that I'm going to be talking about is generously funded by the Forest Service. So thank you to USDA Forest Service for making this happen. And so I know we're in Minnesota. I'm from, I live in Washington State. I've lived in Washington State since the mid-90s. I'm actually originally from Vancouver, BC, but I've been in Washington for a long time. And everybody, I think, seems to agree that the center of Washington, up and down, has really significant wildfire risk. And it makes sense, right? It is a fire-adapted landscape. We have a lot of ponderosa pine and other species that actually want and need fire to regenerate and thrive and to get rid out of the competition of underbrush, et cetera. But one of the challenges that we've seen with the regimen of fire suppression is if you look at this top picture, which is, let me get my glasses on, 1936 versus 2012 below. It's probably a little bit hard to see, but that aerial shot up above, you can see all of those patches in there, right? There was way fewer trees 100 years ago than there are now. And one of the things you can see in some of the coloration differences on this bottom slide here, or bottom picture, that's standing dead. That's just getting ready to go. And guess what? There is actually a third picture after this, which I don't have up here, which is what happened when a fire did come through. A lot of it went up into the air. And a lot of Washington is on fire right now. This is from a couple days ago, for those of you who are familiar with the app Watch Duty, which is amazing. And that big fire in the middle, Lower Sugarloaf, I actually have forest land that's less than 500 feet from the fire line. So this is personal. And this is what those forests look like when they're overstocked and there's no management, is that it's completely closed up. So when the fire does come, it's really intense and it just nukes the soil. So the wildland-urban interface, or the WUI, people here familiar with the WUI, which is just so fun to say. The wildland-urban interface is really the front line between the forest land and infrastructure, but also the other way around, from more populated areas to our forest land. And so making sure that folks are able to manage that land and reduce the fire risk is a really, really big deal. So in this picture, everything that's sort of yellow or red is part of that wildland-urban interface. And we know that management actually works, right? Thinning, limbing, and the reintroduction of controlled burning has a massive impact. This is a really cool thing that happened in Northern California. They did all of these different treatments, everything from do nothing, which is on the one side, to do all the things on the other. And then a wildfire came through and really, really tested it. And on this picture on the top, on the left there, that's the example of the do nothing. And on the right, and that's just a road in between. This is one picture, right? It's between two of these test plots, where they thinned, limbed, and did prescribed burning, and it's just bouncing back like crazy. And you can see it in the data too. So on the left, on all of these boxes, is the do nothing, and higher mortality, more crown fires, et cetera, et cetera. Boxes on the bottom right are where you did all the things, and guess what? Lower crown fire, better outcomes afterwards. But one of the big problems that we have in Washington, and this is all over the place, right? Management costs money. And those areas that we were talking about that were red in that middle and the top middle, way lower income. So it really much more difficult for people to actually pay for this. And even if they are going to do some of this management work, there aren't a lot of places to take any logs that you pull out. So if you're doing brush and stuff like that, that's one thing, right? But if you're taking out logs that you might be merchantable, well, guess what? There aren't any mills. So even if you have something that's merchantable, you know, what are you going to do? Drive it 500 miles? That's just not going to make any economic sense whatsoever, never mind the emissions. So that's the state that we have been in Washington. High fire risk, not a lot of money, and a big problem on our hands. But last year, a bunch of things happened. One is that we are able to legalize flame cap kilns as one of the approaches that we could take. The Climate Action Reserve put out a new protocol for US and Canada that allowed for things like aggregation in a way that seemed like it would be a good fit. And Wehan, who you'll hear from later, and his team came up with an app that would allow for in-field measurement and reporting. And so with all of those things happening last year, on July 24th of last year, a notice of funding came out. And this is what it was for, right? It's trying to connect these small forest landowners, these folks in the WUI and those yellow and red spots, with a new way to gain revenue. And we're like, oh, well, hey, all of these things happened. Maybe we can make a pitch for a project. Now, this NOFO came out on July 24th. We had till August 21st, so less than a month to put something together, which we did. And they said yes. So our project is trying to see, is there a way for us to create a funding flywheel using biochar to help fund forest management? And, you know, especially when we're talking about wildfire resilience. And we don't know. And that's what this project is all about. And I just want to mention some of the wonderful people that are part of this team. The folks from Quorum, who you may see on a bunch of life cycle assessments to do with forest products and biochar, me, troublemaker, and then Kelpie Wilson, who's at a different event today, and Wehan, who have been really helping push things forward on this. Now, one of the things that our project relies on is really doing things locally, which is very much in the spirit of biochar on site. And this goes all the way to how we're looking at the carbon project. So on the left here is what you often see with a lot of large-scale biochar projects, right? A team of people are getting biomass from a bunch of different locations. Sometimes it's a bunch of different types of biomass, and they're bringing it to typically, not always, but typically a fairly centralized processing area, right? The biochar is made. Biochar is sold, and it's sold to a bunch of different customers who are doing a bunch of different things in a bunch of different places with that biochar. But the end use has to happen, right? It has to go all the way from one side to the other for that project to be complete, right? For you to say, yes, carbon's been made, carbon's been sunk, yay. That can take, you know, I mean, you can just look at this, right? There's all of that transportation from those different places where the biomass is coming from. There's all of the chain of custody with all of those folks. You have to sell it, and that's been a challenge for some folks. You know, yes, there's a big market. Sometimes the market is difficult to get into. But then it's also going into all these different end uses, and you have no control over how long it's going to take for a client to actually do something with their biochar. Now, what we're doing is a little bit different. We're going to these different small forest landowners where the biomass is. We're making the biochar right there. We're applying the biochar right there. And so we have one chain of custody agreement with one landowner because it's all staying in the same spot. And then we go to the next landowner and we have an agreement with them. The biomass is there, the production is there, the application is there. And in these incredibly drought-ridden areas, the moisture holding capacity alone is a huge deal. But what this does is allowed us to simplify in some ways what we're doing with this, both from a contractual perspective, but then also we just took sales out of the equation at all. That's just not something we have to deal with. We're providing a service for people. It also means that the timelines are really great because we can literally in 2 days, if the biomass is yarded up, which sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't, we can go to a forest landowner, make that biochar, and then the next day come and apply it. And you've done that whole cycle in 2 days, which is pretty cool, I think. But in order for us to have a supply problem, right, where we have to figure out, you know, where we have all of the carbon sequestered to get the credits and whatnot, we actually have to back up a little bit. We have to create demand with these small forest landowners who have never heard of this practice before, never done it before, never talked to anybody who's done it before. Let them know that it's awesome. Get them to sign up and get them to do it. And not just the small forest landowners, but their consulting forester or, you know, anybody who's doing work on their land, and make all of that happen. So that's what we've been spending a bunch of time on over the past about year. So, you know, here was our very first demo. We only had about half a dozen people there. But then the next one we had, you know, over a dozen people there. And then we had like 24 people at the next one. And then we had like 100 at the next one. And we've just been going through and doing a bunch of these both on, you know, hands-on activities, but then also demonstrations, which has been really helping us show not just to landowners, but again, to their consulting foresters, to fire crews. There's people who are a part of what are called fuels crews in these more wildfire-prone areas, teaching them how to do this instead of just having a chipping day, having a chipping and biochar day. Super fun for the whole family. Oh, the picture I don't have up here is the best part of these when you do them with the public, is people get to roast marshmallows afterwards, and everybody loves it. Okay. One of the other adaptations that we've done that might be of interest to folks is that while we started off just going after and talking to and trying to connect with small forest landowners, one of the things we've been adding to our outreach is finding what we're calling hub stakeholders. So for example, like the fire chief in an area, or the folks at the conservation district, or somebody who's on the board of a homeowners association. And people who are already doing outreach and are already connected to a bunch of folks in that community. And then we go and we try to schedule doing a demonstration on a central piece of property where a bunch of people who were maybe like not so sure about this putting things on fire thing can come check it out. And then they get a little closer, and then they start putting some of the wood in themselves, and then they start asking you questions. It's pretty cool. The other thing that we've noticed, you know, which was something that came to us upon reflection, is that as we were going after small forest landowners, you're really talking about, oh, let's talk about your property and, you know, your landscape and your biomass. And now you're really shifting to something that's really talking more about the community or the watershed or the local economy. And so the types of things that you're talking about changes, which is, I think, important. Where we are with this, so we're actually technically still in 2025 summer. Now the reason it's summer and there aren't actually dates on these is that the way that we talk about summer is when the burn ban starts until the burn ban lifts. That's summer for us in Central Washington. And fall is from when the burn ban lifts till there's too much snow to do anything. That's fall. Winter is from snow to no snow. So just a translation, if you will, about what these mean. So our round one is the round one of treatments that we're gearing up to do. And then we're hoping to go through the process so that we can start kicking the tires on understanding what this might mean from a revenue perspective. And our hope is that while we are slated to do 3 rounds of treatments across a bunch of different landowners, if we can generate revenue from this, this will allow us to do round 4. Round 4 would be 100% funded by the carbon project. So that's where we are. And so, just a couple of things about what we've learned is that once people actually see this, they're in. But some of the things that's been really interesting is in working with the consulting foresters and forestry folks, is that they're really trying to figure out, how do I slot this into my existing services? Like if I'm used to just chipping stuff, or if I'm used to just open pile burning, this is a little bit different. So how do I change that process? So that's the update so far. And I'm not sure if do we have time for questions? Oh, okay, cool, awesome. So like I said, the real test is going to be if we get to do this round number 4, which we're really hoping to do. But we will also need a buyer at that. I think we're too early in the game for that, but very soon we will not be. So if people are interested early about getting in on a project that has just a gazillion co-benefits and is very local, come find me. And I think, oh, thank you. Here we go. A bunch of QR codes. Take your pick. And with that, thank you. And then let's turn it over for questions.